Hello, welcome to the Daily Bellringer. Please don't forget to subscribe and to check out the questions down in the description. Today we're going to be taking a look at Sacagawea. The Lewis and Clark expedition, of course, the big effort to explore the Louisiana Territory there in 1804, 1805, 1806, would not have been successful if it had not been for Sacagawea. I mean, she literally does, basically save the expedition. Now, when I say Sacagawea, that's actually more of the American pronunciation of her name. And I apologize if I use that pronunciation because that's what I'm used to always hearing. But actually, the technical pronunciation of Sacagawea, the way that it's actually appropriate, is Sacagawea. Sacagawea. Is actually how you would pronounce her name. And actually her name, what it means in the Native American culture is it means bird woman or boat puller is actually what her name means. So Sacagawea was the daughter of a Shoshone chief. All right, and the Shoshone actually lived out in what would be present-day Idaho, a little bit further to the west than where actually Lewis and Clark first encounter Sacagawea. But it's believed that about the age of 12, she was captured by the Hidatsa tribe, which was a rival tribe, and then sold to a French trapper or trader who then made her his wife. His name was Toutant Charbonneau. And it was in 1804 when Lewis and Clark get close to what is today Mandan, North Dakota, that they actually first encounter Charbonneau and Sacagawea. And when they encounter them, they of course know we're going to be heading to the west. We know we're going to be encountering Native American tribes, and so it would be really helpful if we had a Native American with us. And so they hire Charbonneau, telling him he's an interpreter. But really what they were doing was they were hiring him because they wanted Sacagawea to come along. Now they wanted her to come along, of course, for several reasons. One, because she was a Native American, and she also would know a little bit more about the land to the west because they found out, she was from the west, from that area out in what would be Idaho today. And so she might know, information about how to get across the Rocky Mountains. But also, having a woman along with the expedition was kind of seen as a sign of peace to the Native American tribes that they encountered. So, they wanted her to come along for several reasons. And so she joins the expedition. Now, she's only around 16 years old, but she's also pregnant at the time when she joins the expedition. And she actually gives birth to a child there shortly after joining them named Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau. And actually William Clark nicknamed him Pomp or Pompey. But imagine that she's actually carrying a child with her the entire time while she's traveling west. I mean, that's just amazing that she was able to do that. But she becomes very helpful on the expedition, of course. She actually, as I said before, she's really the one who saves this expedition because there's moments where they're running low on food, and she's the one who knew where to find food and because of, her skills as, living out in the wild. And so she helps them to find food. There's actually a moment where a boat actually capsizes or tips over in the river, and she saves this journal that's got thousands of pages of information that Lewis and Clark have been collecting. And so she saves all this data that they've been collecting on the trip. And probably one of the most interesting moments that happens with Sacagawea on the way is they're getting close to the Rocky Mountains, and they know that they're going to need horses to get across the Rocky Mountains. They're going to have to negotiate with the Shoshone tribe that's in the area. And so they basically send Sacagawea to start the negotiations. And when she starts negotiating, she begins to realize the person she's talking to was one of her brothers that she had been separated from years before when she had been kidnapped. And so it's like this big family reunion that takes place, and they're able to get the horses that they need and everything. Sacagawea and her husband Charbonneau and her child Jean-Baptiste, they all make it to the Pacific Ocean there in 1805. They, of course, spend the winter there at Fort Clatsop along with Lewis and Clark. Then they begin the return journey, and they actually, travel with Lewis and Clark all the way back to Mandan, North Dakota. But it's there where, they'd first met that they depart from the expedition. All right, but here's where history gets a little confusing, what happens afterwards. 1809, it's believed that Sacagawea and Charbonneau traveled to St. Louis. There's some historians that say it's just Charbonneau that travels to St. Louis. And they actually take Jean-Baptiste and leave him in the care of William Clark. William Clark had offered to educate or take care of his education, or basically enroll him in a school. All right, and then she returns, and in 1812 she gives birth to another child named Lisette, or Lissetti, and she dies 3 months later. All right, not Lissetti dies 3 months later. Actually, it is believed that she dies fairly soon, but Sacagawea dies 3 months later in 1812, and it's believed that she dies from what they call putrid fever or typhus. All right, so after her death, William Clark takes custody of the children. Now, it's believed that Lissetti dies in infancy because there's not really much record of her, but it's also believed that Charbonneau was already dead because, again, custody goes over to William Clark. And so there's also another theory that she possibly lived until 1884. So again, some interesting stuff there. Not really sure about exactly what happened in history there, but again, hopefully you learned something there, and thanks for watching.